panel session next is on talent. Where are they? The moderator for this session is Mr. Dilip Chenoy, who is the CEO and MD of the National Skill Development Corporation. The NSDC is a public-private partnership whose objective is to skill 150 million people in India by 2022, which is a very high standard they've set for themselves. This is to be done by fostering private sector investment and initiatives in training and skill development in 20 high-growth sectors and the unorganized segment. Mr. Chenoy was the Deputy Director General responsible for Industry Sectors and Associations Council, covering agriculture, life sciences, and ICT in the Confederation of the Indian Industry. He was also the Director General of the Advocacy Group for the Automobile Industry in India, Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, where he was responsible for setting the technical, economic, and social responsibility agenda for the automobile industry. Mr. Chenoy, may I please ask you to come? Thank you. We have three esteemed panelists as well for this session. Mr. Ed Rigsby. Mr. Rigsby is from Rigsbee Enterprises Incorporated. Mr. Rigsby? He's one of the few people to hold the Certified Association Executive credentialed from the ASAE, the Center for Association Leadership, and also the Certified Speaking Professional credential from the National Speakers Association. Mr. Rigsby has over 2,000 published articles to his credit and is also the author of 3 books on strategic alliance, development, and implementation. In addition to 25 years of counseling worldwide for profit and non-profit organizations in the area of return on investment, he's also the CEO of an American non-profit charity. Our next panelist is Susan Sarfati. Susan, may I please ask you to come on stage? Susan is the CEO of High Performance Strategy for the Limited Liability Company, or the LLC. She focuses on creating high-performance individuals, teams, and organizations to achieve extraordinary bottom-line results. For over 25 years, Susan has served as the CEO of the Greater Washington Society of Association Executives, the founding CEO of the Center for Associated Leadership, and Executive Vice President of the American Association of Association Executives. Her expertise focuses on leadership, management, sustainability, women's issues, and the list goes on and on. Our last panelist for this session is Mr. Avek Mitra. Mr. Mitra? Mr. Mitra is the advisor to the National Board of Quality Promotion, Quality Council of India. He's currently working as an advisor to the National Board for Quality Promotion, a constituent board of the Quality Council of India. His team is engaged in implementing the National Quality Campaign program for the Government of India. Prior to joining QCI, Mr. Mitra worked as head of the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry of India, a national-level apex industry body of the country. He has also served as deputy director with the National Productivity Council and worked in 2 multinational companies. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with our next session after this one and postpone tea by a bit since I think you're all still digesting your lunch. Thank you.
So thank you and good afternoon. And after that very interesting presentation, I think we move into a kind of a discussion mode. And really this session is going to focus on how we run associations, where the people that run associations, and how do you actually create a kind of environment where people feel empowered and they seek association as a career. I've spent quite a considerable time in associations, and when I was kind of pulled out from CIM to move into NSDC, one of the challenges I set for myself was how do I create a new system in the Indian association movement. Typically people in the Indian association movement move from one association to another very, very seldomly, and it's among the larger associations. You don't see that happening in sectoral associations. So I took upon it a challenge of how do I actually get someone heading another sector association to take over SIM, how to get another person who was heading another. So we did a rotation, right? And very interestingly, the person who had the Manufacturers Association of Information Technology went to head the Auto Components Association, and Vishnu, who had the Auto Components Association, came in to head SIM when I stepped out. But perhaps that's a kind of a aberration. And what we used to joke when we were in industry, and there's no reflection on the people in this room, but it's part of the blurb for this session, that typically the association is headed by an executive director or a director general or a secretary general who stays on for decades, and people come and go below him. And is that creating a vibrant association movement or not creating a vibrant association movement? Is it the same in other countries? Is it the same in other sectors? So we've got a fantastic panel here, and they've all been introduced. So let me start with Susan first. And so how do you actually create an organization, right, that works in the space that we all are in and creates a pathway or enables people to grow?
Yes. Thank you very much for that question, and it's a pleasure to be here. This is my second time in India, and I'm enjoying it very, very much. A very famous futurist, his name is John Nesbitt, wrote at the very beginning of this century that the biggest challenge of the 21st century will be balancing the high touch, the humanness that people care about and crave, and the technology or the high tech. And I absolutely, totally agree with that. And I really enjoyed the video that the opening speaker showed, well, both videos, but especially the one by showing President Mandela at the first day of his job as president of the country. And he, of course, tried to welcome the talent that he had to deal with and work with into a community of individuals that would work together. And he said to them, I want you to contribute, I want you to be part of this team and to move the country ahead. So I think that there are 5 basic areas, whether somebody is a volunteer of association or somebody is a staff person of association, 5 elements that are very, very important. The first one is a sense of freedom. And people that are working in organizations want to have a sense that they can get their ideas heard, their ideas communicated, and that their ideas are important, that they have freedom of expression and freedom of being empowered as individuals to contribute to the organization. And when Arlene asked for show of hands, many of you are volunteers, many of you are staff, but that sense of freedom of contribution is really important. The second element is end results, that whatever contribution or whatever work you're doing for an organization, you end up with success. People want to succeed. They want to have their work of value, and that whatever they're doing is very successful. The third one that I think is very important is openness, that we all want to operate in a world with openness and transparency. We want to feel that when you talk to somebody or a group of people, there's a level of trust. And we throw around the term transparency all the time, but it is very, very important in creating an environment that is positive. The fourth area of creating this work environment that is very successful is connectedness. People want to build relationships with each other. And just like the futurist said, we are in a world of high technology, But human relations and human connectedness is very, very important. And the last thing is communication. I spent the majority of my career with the American Society of Association Executives, one that Arlene is doing such a wonderful job as the chairman. And connectedness and communication was so important in our member organizations. People always said, I go to work every day, I'm a volunteer, and I give so much, but I need more communication. I need more information. I need to know what's going on. So the fifth element is that people spend time communicating with each other, and that's not only talking, but that's also listening. So those are the 5 that come to mind: freedom, end results, openness, connectedness, and communication. And that must make some kind of acronym. I don't know, we're in a world of acronyms, so it must make some kind of acronym.
Thank you. So
Yes.
if you were to look at the work that you have been doing, and you've nicely labeled it as return of investment on business alliances, and does what you just heard make any sense to you in terms of the association structure, or do we need something else there which we've not yet heard, or what is it that will enable people within the group to reach out and grow associations and have career paths?
Well, I think that everybody has something to contribute, whether it's Susan's 5 points. But, let me back up just a little bit. This is only my second day in India. And yet, my first full day was yesterday. And we took a tour. And I was sitting in the front seat of the car, and we're driving. Somebody explained to me that here it's called kamikaze driving. Is that right? Because the cars are doing that? Okay. One thing that I noticed when we were driving around New Delhi, there wasn't a lot of parking spots. Is that all over the country? Not a lot of parking spots? So let me ask you this, every person in the room. When you go somewhere, you drive somewhere, whether it be to work or at the store, and you find a really, really good parking spot, how does that make you feel? I'm sorry? This is the audience participation part. How does it make you feel? Okay, so you get this really awesome parking spot, right? And do you want to leave it? No, because you got this great parking spot, and when you go back to your car, you think, do I want to drive away because I got this great parking spot? Come on, this happens, doesn't it? Well, let's relate this to your employees. Let's think about this. So you have an employee, and they're really a good employee, and they do a really good job, and you just love them to death because they make your life so easy, right? They're in a parking spot. You put them in a parking spot, and you don't want to let them go. You don't want to give up that parking spot. That's the challenge that you and I have. Every time we have an employee that's growing, when they start doing a really good job and they make our life easy, we don't want to let them move up. We don't want to let them grow. We don't want to let go. In the mid-1990s, I flew all around the United States for Dun & Bradstreet. Probably a lot of you have heard the name Dun & Bradstreet, and for their foundation. I was doing the full-day workshops on supervision, mostly supervision type programs. And I did a research study. I asked, over a period of almost a year, hundreds of audience members, asked them to fill out a little card. What's one thing that your company or your boss could do to improve your loyalty to the company? Does anybody have any idea what the most common answer might have been? Just yell it out. I'm sorry? Okay, very good. I'm sorry? Thank me. Very good. Anything else? A better office. Don't be greedy. What else? What else? Better salary. Don't be greedy. What else? I'm sorry? Recognition. God bless you. You just won. Yes, recognition. About 50% of the answers were recognition. 1 in 12 was more money. So what are we going to do to help our employees to grow? Well, number one, we're not going to lock them in a parking spot. And you know you want to, don't you? You know you want to keep them there because they make your life so well. You've got to be willing to let go, let them out of the parking spot. And number two, we really have to recognize our employees because employees, believe it or not, they want recognition more than they want money. You do these things, they'll start growing, they'll start doing amazing things, and just maybe you might like them well enough that you might let them go and let them move on to another organization where they can create value there.
Thank you, Ed.
Over to you.
I just want to ask, in the audience, how many chairmen or non-secretariat members of the association are in the room? Okay.
I don't understand
You
that
mean
question.
volunteers?
Yeah, these are people from the membership, not necessarily from the staff.
Okay, so
Okay.
how many are volunteers? How many are paid?
No. No, you see, I mean,
Help me.
someone raised their hand, right? So would you, Nalin, will you explain? Sorry.
We have, like, I'm from a trade association.
Does anybody have a microphone?
So Nalin's from a trade association, but he has his own business. Right?
Yeah, many of the associations in India, you would have somebody from the industry or business to be the chair or to be member of the board, and you would have professionals who run the organization. So
Yes.
So you're the volunteer leader.
Yeah, volunteer leader, okay.
Yeah, I
Volunteer
belong
leader.
to that category.
So thanks, Nalin. And
Yeah.
the reason why I asked this question, the whole thing of recognition came in. Many a time, I mean, this is a kind of an exception, but supposing this were an ASSOCHAM meeting, and Avik were the ASSOCHAM secretariat, and I were the ASSOCHAM president, I would recognize Susan and you, but I would never recognize Avik. Is that right, Nalin? Normally, the chairman or people sitting on the dais never recognize a secretariat or a staff person on the table. So we are in the same fraternity. So I think if all of us go out of this room saying that we will make it a point to recognize and reward them, the only time they recognize when they become institutions in themselves or there are some things there.
Yeah.
So Avik, given that background, and you've been in NPC, which is a different type of an organization, but also a membership body.
Yes.
And then you've been in ASSOCHAM, and now you're in the QCI. So what's the Indian experience, and what would you contrast with what's happening in the US versus India?
Yes, I personally think, yes, you rightly mentioned that I have worked in a chamber, and incidentally it was in ASSOCHAM, and I've also worked in NPC, and currently in the Quality Council of India, and I also have worked in 2 multinational companies. And this issue of, retaining talent or retaining people, if you may say, is a critical one, and this is a very critical one for the associations, particularly for the associations. Now, how do you keep them? I often recall many instances, see a project is going on, and a good guy is doing the work, and then suddenly the guy leaves, and you are in a problem. You just do not know what to do with that. And but why is this happening? Are we? What's the fundamental problem in these organizations? Are there any fundamental problem in these organizations? This subject matter, this is related to human resource. I mean, how to keep human resources within or keep people happy within an organization. A difficult subject because if any subject is difficult, then when it poses a challenge, then thought process starts, and then we come out with many solutions. This word talent, which is today's right now the topic of discussion. This talent word was not there. It came when? It came in the late 90s. In the late 90s, this word talent came, and it came from but from the Harvard Business, the War of Talents. I believe some of you must have read that book, The War on Talents. That was the turning point in which people started recognizing that talent management is a process, and we have to do that. Now, another question is, what is talent? What is talent? It's a very difficult definition. There is no clear definition of what is talent. We have clear definitions of what is skill. In any association, any skills are required, computer skills are required, communication skills are required. And then from the skills, we have now competencies. We are talking about competencies, which along with the skill, the word knowledge has been added, and then some personal traits have been added. So competency is a summation of knowledge, skills, and personal traits like attitude. But what is skill? What is talent? But the best definition of talent is,
how does it work in an association? What has your experience been?
In associations, what happens in associations? What are the barriers? Some of the barriers, if we may say, are there's no list or anything like that, but something. One is job dissatisfaction. There is an amount of job dissatisfaction that is noticeable in many of these associations. There is some kind of a lack of challenge. There is especially I'm talking about the middle level people, not that the top leadership position, and lack of confidence or lack of respect. And also there is some dissatisfaction with our colleagues, some kind of a dissatisfaction going within our colleagues. And lastly, maybe compensation, the issue of compensation. Now, what is to be done about it? I never forget that experience of mine. I take one word from you, and that word was, somebody told me you don't have to do many things to keep people happy and keep people within your organization. The mantra, as we say, the mantra is RAP. You know what is RAP? R stands for?
Recognition.
What you said? Recognition. A stands for? Appreciation. And P stands for? Praise. He's not talking about performance management. He's not talking about compensation. Nothing. He's talking about RAP experience. Give them the RAP experience. Recognize, appreciate, praise.
Please don't go by the English language meaning of rap, right? This is exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah, okay.
But unfortunately, I keep on thinking on this thing. In associations and also in most of the organizations also, we cannot do rap. And I was given a gesture that give rap like this, give rap like this, give rap like this in abundance. Don't give rap like this.
Okay. So, I'm just going to do another round of two people that are going to come into the audience so we can ask you questions. So, Susan, how do you, create that whole environment and encouragement process to actually, ensure growth within the association? You were in the greater Washington area, you coordinated everything. I think 80% of the associations in the US are in that area.
Not quite that high, but really high, really high,
Okay.
yes.
And, but within the associations, there's no movement. I mean, across associations, there's very little movement.
Oh, a lot of movement.
Okay.
Yes, actually, the average person now that starts in an association career will change jobs every 7 years. That is in an environment where there's a lot of job opportunities. It used to be that people would stay on and on and on, and that still happens somewhat. But I want to piggyback on what you were saying and the word appreciate or appreciation. There are really two ways that associations, that I have seen associations operate. One is to look at where they are today, look at deficit thinking or problems and say, okay, this is the problem the organization has, this is how we can fix the problem. A way that I think is more effective is called appreciative inquiry. And what appreciative inquiry is looking at what an organization does best, or looking at what an individual does best, and then saying, how can we do more of that? So it's not that we don't look at problems, but it's the way we focus. Instead of focusing on what's wrong and how are we going to fix it, it's a focus on what is right, what is working, and what is working really well, and how can we do more of that. And a person in an organization that's a leader, whether it's the paid staff person, the chairman of the board, the president of the organization, can help to steer the organization to look at, it's like looking at the positive. What is excellent about the association, and how can we do more of that? And if you haven't heard of this concept, it's not anything like radical, but it's called appreciative inquiry. And you could Google appreciative inquiry, you'll come up with lots and lots of good articles. And I found that a focus on what is happening that's excellent and how we can do more of it helped move the organization that I was CEO of light years ahead. And I recommend that for even strategic planning. Instead of saying, we're here, here's the problems we have to fix, we could say, these are the great things we've done, how can we do more of that and build on the greatness?
So Ed, if you look at the Indian context, and one of the challenges in the Indian context is there are some associations which are, two-member staff associations. There's some 5, the 10, 15. So in kind of such situations, right, how do you address the parking lot issue, and how do you create processes and systems that actually enable that? Is there a need, for example, in the US, and Susan, I've actually worked out of, let's say, the Valve Manufacturers Association in 8th Street or K Street or the NEMA or the NAM or the US Chamber. I've actually sat in the offices.
I worked at the US Chamber too.
And worked out of them. But they have different, models. And so how would you, if you were to say that if Indian organizations could do something, what could it be?
Okay, here's the first thing I want every person in this room to do. Take your pen. Got it? I don't see a pen in your hand. Put a pen in your hand.
They have a tablet.
Okay. Now, this is tactile. Take this pen. Write down on, you got a tablet. Open it up. Open up. Here, let me show you how to do it. Oh.
Put it in my pocket.
Here, let me show you how to do this thing. Okay, there you go. Open up the tablet. Open up the tablet.
Oh, I didn't
Okay, very good. Now what I want you to do is write this down. Write this down. We compete, you're not writing, against Google. We compete against Google.
Good.
What does that mean? Well, that means several things. Your organization competes against Google in how you deliver value to your members, right? Would you agree with that? If you don't agree, you're in the Stone Age. But
Okay.
let's just.
I don't agree.
You do. The other thing is you compete against Google for your employees. Because whether you have a staff of 1 person or 2 people or a staff of 200 people, those people have access to Google. They have access to what other organizations are doing, what other organizations are paying. They have access to how to get a hold of recruiters. So in looking at this, there is also a generational issue. How many in the room have kids, sons, daughters, that are somewhere in their late 20s, early 30s? How many of you have sons and daughters, late 20s, early 30s? Do they see the world the way you see it? No way in heck. Okay? You see the world as you get a job, you're very loyal to your company, right? You're very loyal to the association. How do they see it? They see, the only way I'm going to get a raise is to move. Is that right? That's how they see it. So in looking to answer your question, in looking at what we can do and going back to RAP, I love that. I've never heard that before. Recognition, appreciation, praise. And pitch them up against the wall. Oh, I'm sorry, praise. Sorry, my bad. I apologize, my bad. But in looking at how we're going to show these people recognition, it makes me, when you bring that, maybe think about Ken Blanchard's book, The 1 Minute Manager, how they wander around and you catch people doing things right and you recognize them immediately. Here's a takeaway, I think, that I hope everybody will accept. As we praise people, the praise or recognition, which I consider the same thing, it has to be customized to that person. Different people like recognition different ways. Would you agree with that? Some people are happy to hear a thank you. Other people, want a coffee mug. Somebody else wants a leather jacket. Everybody wants something different. All I would ask you to do is, as you're looking at the employees, especially for those of you in the room that are the chief staff executive, the top paid person, or if you're the chief elected officer, the top volunteer, the chief elected officer, you're working with the chair or with your chief staff executive on looking at the pay for these people and looking at how their job is. If we're recognizing the people and we're doing it in a customized way, and we're cognizant of the fact that all of the people sitting in our offices, they have access to more information about other jobs, other people, and other possibilities than those of us in the room that don't have any hair that we had when we were at that age. Be aware of that, and that'll go a long way to making a difference.
Thanks. Okay, so we're just going to open it up to the floor for the questions, and any questions, please, that you have. Yep, go ahead. So there's a mic coming across. So we'll take 2-3 questions together, then we'll answer them and take another lot there if it's okay.
Again, Professor Aman Agarwal from Indian Institute of Finance in Delhi. I've had the honor of being on boards of 2 of the largest national chambers, or 4 national chambers we have in India, 2 of them. And both of them had people at the helm of affairs from the Secretariat who the industrialists and the people below did not like. And there was no way to motivate them or praise them to get them off. And they were very happy when they left. Now, when such a talent gets developed in the organization, then how do you go about resolving this issue?
Right.
You want to repeat?
Can you just pass the mic so if you can quick and hasten? Yeah, I'll come back to you. We'll do the circle and come back to you.
Could I ask everybody to put the microphone close to your mouth, because so we can hear?
Mr. Agarwal from the Institute of Finance Management, right?
I'm P.K. Das, President of Indian Institute of Welding. Now, I'm enjoying the discussion very much, and thanks for that. Now, I'll say a little bit about our association.
Question.
Yeah, first of all, the question is, it is the topic of the panel itself, that is talent, where are they? Typically, I feel that every association is facing a problem of getting talented people, because first of all, the association's resources, they can't pay as high as any other business house. So this is my question.
Okay.
How do we get talented people?
Yeah.
My name is Sampath. I'm connected to 2 institutions, Indian Institute of Industrial Engineering and also Strategic Management Group. The Hindu philosophy is, as per the Gita, question is, yes, if there is a commitment, there is a need for praise or criticism. If there is a commitment, that is our philosophy. Gita talks about it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm Praveen Mittal from FICCI. An important question which I would like to raise here, which was the starting point, that why do people move on? I mean, when we have the organizations being headed by executive directors, DDGs, and secretary generals, and so on and so forth, opportunity, what do you say about that? Why don't we create enough opportunities for the people to maybe rise to higher ranks?
You mean to say there are no opportunities currently?
I mean, it becomes the responsibility of the person who's at the helm of the affairs to create opportunities.
Okay, come back. Yeah, this question, then I'll come to that side of it. Let us finish it here. Anyone else in this? You have your last opportunity, then I'll go back to that after. Okay, Nalin, and quick questions. The faster you ask questions, the easier it will be to answer.
Actually, with the
Really? That's a
I
good
think
one.
with recognition or appraisals or maybe like the whole rap, it is the mother of all the greeds in the mediocre level organizations, specifically in the Indian scenario. So how do you customize this rap in that mediocre level organizations?
Okay, thank you. Last two, yeah, quick questions. Then we'll just, they're all very linked. So
Will you link them?
We all talked of recognition, appreciation, praise. This is when
I might know you, but they don't, so if you can introduce yourself.
yeah, this is when the things go right. But when the things go wrong, then there has to be somebody who has to take the blame. Who is the person who is going to be taking the blame?
Okay.
Because that's very important.
Right. Thank you.
Because it's always the man in the front who takes the blame, but actually it's the whole organization should take it together.
Yeah, Nalin.
Would it be okay if we started with that?
Yeah, you can start with any order. You'll be the first one who starts answering the questions after Nalin finishes.
Because I think
Thank
that's
you.
a core issue.
Yeah.
I have a question in terms of how this whole business of running the secretariat is likely to evolve related to smaller organizations. I've been on the boards of larger industry associations.
Yeah.
Do you see any possibilities of outsourcing or somebody providing this as a service in the future? Because to run a very small secretariat, because you can't justify a large secretariat, becomes a big issue. And some of the associations who need good quality secretariat service, is there anything in the US where you outsource it to somebody?
So,
Well, to answer that question, Alphonse, could you stand up, please? I mean, if you turn around, sir, turn around. There's the answer to your question. There's people like Alphonse, the association management companies all over the place, that when you don't have the money to do it yourself, they have the resources to do it faster, cheaper, better, more effectively. It's not always the best answer, but to answer your question,
That doesn't happen in India.
Nalin, no, I think
That's the
Started happening?
Unfortunately, I'm sitting here and I ran 18 associations, sitting in CII.
He's sitting there what?
In CII, I ran 18 associations. Tractor manufacturers,
So I guess the
fan
answer is yes.
fan makers. And like in the US, there are a lot of companies, but I think what's actually emerging now is outsourcing HR, outsourcing accounts, and other such things here. You know, you have My CFO, you have People Strong, you have other such organizations that who can actually do that. All NSDC HR is outsourced. Our accounts are outsourced. I'm not an association of it, but just telling you.
I'll let Susan go.
Yeah, I wanted to address the issue about blame. You know, when something goes wrong, what actually do you do with it? A very important thing is that people working in associations and all organizations develop a sense of accountability. I don't think it's exactly about blame, but it's about feeling accountable for what you are charged with doing or what your responsibilities are doing. I think creating an environment where it's okay to make a mistake has to be part of an association's environment, because you want to be innovative and risk-taking and trying new things. And when you try new things, there's bound to be something that goes wrong. And instead of an environment of blaming people, it's an environment of accountability and coaching, where different staff members and the volunteer leaders reach out and help each other and then make the adjustments that are necessary. So it's not really finger pointing, it's being accountable and moving forward after you realize that something went wrong.
So Avik, 3: commitment, pace, and stability.
And
Commitment, pay, and stability. The 3 questions unanswered.
commitment, okay, you have to build up, there are 2 things. Commitment is, you cannot just in a day build up commitment. Respect for people is a very important thing. I mean, it's world over now known that that company that made very famous, the Toyota production, I am talking about the Toyota, and that across the globe we are trying to have a respect, give respect to the people. Commitment and other things will evolve, will come. It just doesn't come in a day or like that. And the second point is trust. You have to build up trust. We are talking about change. Now, if the change has to be, if you have to bring respect and trust, and through a change process is needed, well, we have to undergo that change process. So these 2, these are again 2 major building blocks to build up commitments. And what was the other word you mentioned?
Remuneration, pay.
Pay is never a solution.
Okay, I'll take that one. I think here's a challenge. There are 2 models of associations that are run in India. One is that the board decides how much is going to be spent every year, and your salary is fixed and you get an increment, possibly the IIW model, right? But there are other associations where when I was hiring people in an association, one head of an association, I wanted to move there, and he said, in my association, I get the salary from the annual budget. I don't have to go out and raise income, right? So if you want to say, and if you want to bring a pact and all you get around the room, and say, if our incomes becomes this, and if we can grow our top line by this, our salary levels grow by Y, and then you look at it, it's a different thing. So one of the biggest challenges in associations and in remuneration is how do you increase your turnover to enable, how do you do more with less? And that's slightly contrary to what was talked about earlier, but I'm saying in revenue terms, and then you can pay more, right? If you're going to depend on membership to actually do your remuneration, you're not going to get that outcome. And for a lot of us in the association business who joined when we are unmarried, one big thing was, who's going to marry us? Where are you working? So we decided that we'll create a brand that everybody will recognize, so at least some of us will get married. And this is a true story, by the way. And for Praveen from FICCI, I joined as an executive assistant. Okay, and one worked out. So it's possible. You can do it. Opportunities are there, it's for us to take it, right? Yes. So that group didn't get some questions. We have 2 minutes left, so if you ask quick questions and we get quick responses, we can satisfy those at the back.
Can I just comment on something? Yes.
But any questions there, or should we just ask Susan to continue? None? Okay. So.
No, I just want to comment about the compensation issue. Earlier on, associations absolutely focused on their mission, and they still focus on their mission. But as time went on, we all have become more businesslike and more entrepreneurial. So, the fact that associations are really poor and people can't make enough money is, I think, really out the window. And many associations operate very entrepreneurially. Their staff might be on an incentive compensation. When people accomplish something, they're able to make more. So I think recognition is very, very important, but let's not kid ourselves. People care about what goes in their pocket. So creating an entrepreneurial organization, and one where staff or the members of the staff of the association are incentivized to develop larger revenue, I think is a good way, a good mindset for the association community.
There's something, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just I wanted to take it to a more core issue. The gentleman over there asked about blame. And, many years ago, I learned something that really was impactful in my life. And it's when I point my finger at you, how many fingers are pointing back at me? And in all of the research I've done, for all of the books I've written, I will tell you this. Everything starts in the CEO's office. If something is not working in your organization and you're the CEO, you better look in the mirror, because don't blame your employees, because you're the one that sets the tone, you're the one that determines where and how they're going to go. And if it's not working for you, you got to look in the mirror.
So I think with that message to all of us in the room, I'm going to end this session here. First of all, thanking all of you, and especially those who raised questions and asked and drew out the best from the panelists. So thank you for being such a great audience, and thank you, Susan, Ed, and Avik, for being such a great panel. And thank you, and back to you, ma'am. Hopefully we saved you 10 minutes. Right? Thank you.